In the beginning, there was chaos. Chaos gave rise to Uranus, the sky titan, Gaia, the earth titan. Gaia and Uranus had many children, so the Cyclops, the Hecatoncheires, many titans, including Kronos and his siblings. When the Cyclops were born, Uranus imprisoned them. Gaia found this to be an abusive action, and so she forged Kronos a weapon with which Kronos killed Uranus and stuffed him into Tartarus, a cavern deep within the earth. After that, Kronos ruled as king, but Kronos received a prophecy that his children would overthrow him. So as his wife Rhea gave birth to his children, he ate them. This naturally upset Rhea very much, so she tricked Kronos by feeding, instead of giving her youngest son Zeus to him, she gave him a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes and sent Zeus off to Crete to be raised. After Zeus grew up, he returned, gave Kronos a potion, so he threw up the Olympians that he had eaten, and Zeus went to war with Kronos with his siblings that he had retrieved from his father's stomach. Many monsters died, many titans died. Kronos ended up being cut up as like his father Uranus and thrown into Tartarus. Then Zeus settled down with his first wife, Metis, but with Metis' first pregnancy came a prophecy. Metis would give birth to two twins, a boy and a girl. The boy would dethrone Zeus and kill him. The girl would match Zeus in intellect. So, in order to foil this prophecy, Zeus tricked Metis into turning into either a drop of water or a fly, depending on which version of the story. Then ate her. Soon after, he began to absorb her cleverness and became much wiser. But shortly after, Zeus began to develop headaches. They became so bad that he asked his son Hephaestus to split open his forehead to see what was going on inside of his brain. This released Athena, who stepped out of Zeus's forehead fully formed and fully armored. Okay. Next, we come to the events that start the novel. The corruption and transformation of Scylla and the punishment of Prometheus. Prometheus provides the first link that in the story we have to Hercules, one of the major heroes of the Mycenaean age. After Circe is banished to Aea, we come to the Minoans and Circe's visit to Crete. The real history of the Minoans is that they were a rival civilization to the Mycenaeans. They had a bull-worshipping religion. Many Cretan murals have this bull motif to them. Their architecture is different than the Greeks. The Greeks preferred boxy-built, compact buildings, and the Minoans preferred sprawling, interconnected buildings with interconnected rooms that stand independently. Also, the theme of the labyrinth both evokes the architecture and the landscape of Crete, which is very rough, similar to the terrain we saw on Mount Olympus. Also, recent excavations in Crete have found human bones that were butchered in a cannibalistic way in a Cretan temple. So, there were indeed people being eaten on Crete, but not by a Minotaur. The Minoans endured until about 100 years before the Trojan War started, about 1300 BC, at which time they were destroyed by a series of tsunamis caused by a large volcanic eruption to the north of Crete. This gives you some idea, this picture gives you some idea of the size of the tsunamis, even though this is a photoshopped picture. What followed the tsunamis was a invasion by the Peloponnesian Greeks, or also known as the Mycenaeans, because the main defense of the Minoan civilization was naval power. They did not build many defensive walls around their cities, which left them vulnerable to the Mycenaean attack after the disaster happened.
Wait, okay.
This is a map showing the ethnic boundaries. It's much more complicated than this on the ground, because in the Mycenaean period, the whole world was divided into city-states or polises. Notable locations include Troy here, Ithaca here, and on the far eastern end of the Black Sea, Colchis, which according to mythology was ruled by Aeetes, Circe's brother. Which leads us to the birth of Hercules. This is important because Hercules shows up in multiple stories, so can give us a framework for laying all this mythology out into a timeline. The 12 labors of Hercules, after Hera drove him mad and he killed his family, followed by Jason's quest, where after Hercules was freed from enslavement for the murder of his family, Hercules accompanied Jason on the first leg of his journey towards Colchis. After Hercules leaves to do his own adventure, Jason arrives at Colchis, wins the fleece, and returns back towards Greece, which is where he intersects with the events in the novel. A decade or so later, or soon after Jason's trip, was the birth of Helen, followed about 30 years later by the Trojan War. So, after the Trojan War ends through Odysseus' construction of the Trojan horse, Odysseus spends the next 3 years bouncing around the Mediterranean. Here is a possible route of his journey from Troy to Ithaca. The geography of the mythological world is a bit vague and a bit strange, so many scholars disagree with this interpretation. So, Aea is the best guess is that it is up somewhere near Sardinia and Corsica. Okay.
Ready? There.
This brings us to the end of the novel, the death of Odysseus by his son Telegonus, and the marriage of Telemachus to Circe is told in the book that is less well known than the Odyssey and the Iliad, the Telegonia. Circe becomes mortal and kills Scylla. In the older sources, Hercules kills Scylla. Because Odysseus meets Hercules' phantom in the underworld, Hercules has already ascended to become a god. So Circe becomes mortal just in time for the 1177 BCE Mycenaean collapse, the first societal collapse in Europe. This was a widespread event. It not only was involved in the Trojan War, it caused Egypt to fracture into a bunch of feuding fiefdoms. It caused Anatolia, in central Turkey, to regress culturally and politically. It caused the large-scale destruction of all the palaces across the Mediterranean. This picture is another Mycenaean ruin. During the 400 years of Dark Ages that followed, the Greeks lost all of their language, and it was only in the 800s BC that they reclaimed the written word with a different alphabet imported from the Phoenicians. This is a scholarly best guess of what a Mycenaean palace room would look like.